Good news for fans of Hurricanes man Ngani Laumape, as he has been called up to the All Blacks squad, which is getting ready for this week's match against the Wallabies in Wellington. This has kind of come about due to Braden Enor's injury, so he's out. That's been known for quite some time, given in that North and South game he injured his ACL. He's going to be out for ages. But it's an interesting one with Laumape because a lot of fans feel pretty bad for him after he did not make the Rugby World Cup squad. And to be honest, when I did a couple of videos about like the All Black squad being named, and either I forgot to mention Laumape or I put his name to the end, basically saying he's injured, he broke his arm, or was it his wrist, in Super Rugby Aotearoa. Like, there were so many people who hadn't heard he was injured, like outraged, where's Laumape, where's Laumape, where's Laumape? So good news for all you Laumape fans, because I know there's a few out there. He has made the squad. I've also had a quick look at his stats as well, which kind of back up a lot of what people feel about him in terms of his performance levels. From what I understand, though, he was always going to be called back up once he was fit. And he seems to be tracking along pretty well, because I think it was originally supposed to be November, but we're in October now and he's being called back up. He is going to be not ready for the first game, is what it said in the news. I would imagine he'll be pushing it to make the second game as well, but hopefully once we get to the Rugby Championship, assuming all that goes ahead across the ditch in November, then we should be good to go for Ngani. But yeah, and likewise also Pete Umaga-Jensen has also been called up as wider cover as well. So it seems like Laumape gets his spot and Umaga-Jensen is maybe more the cover for Enor. Especially seeing as Enor mainly played 13, and likewise did Umaga-Jensen. He seems like a pretty good up-and-coming young prospect, but I promised some stats. You know me, I do love a stat. And why is it that Laumape is so well liked? Why is it that he's such a devastating player? The numbers tell the story, man. I've done stats videos on him before, where previously, like I think last year I looked at Laumape, Nonu, Sonny Bill, Goodhue, ALB, and the story of that one was basically like Ngani can score tries, doesn't get much in the try assist, doesn't get much in passing, his tackling rate's pretty low, but man, with ball in hand, he is second to none. He was streets ahead of everyone else, whereas like Ryan Crotty was another one, had a real all-round game, good distribution, good defense and whatnot. You look at Laumape's stats now, and I think the All Blacks have always talked about getting him to up his game in certain areas. I think you're starting to see some of that. So, is he still a devastating, game-breaking individual? Yes, he is. Averaged in Super Rugby Aotearoa 12.5 runs a game. To put that into context, Goodhue was 9.1. So he likes to take the ball to the line. He averaged 63 run meters, which, if you're not aware, for a midfielder is pretty bloody high. Goodhue for the Crusaders was 24. I'm not trying to throw shade at Goodhue, I'm just saying in comparison. They've both got their strengths and weaknesses. Ngani is pretty good with ball in hand. Ngani averaged 2.2 clean breaks a game. Goodhue 0.7. And Laumape 4.7 defenders beaten a game. I think the most he had one game was like 9. And Goodhue is at 2. So ball in hand, he is just an absolute wrecking ball player. He's such a hard guy to bring down. Just ask Beauden Barrett about that. Pretty tough. I wouldn't want to tackle him. Neither would Gaza, my dad. That's for sure. But the areas of his game where he gets criticised is his distribution and his work rate for his defence. So passing, you look at the number of passes, he has a game 5.5, whereas Goodhue is at 7.9. So Goodhue's more likely to pass the ball, whereas Ngani's more likely to run the ball. But kicking actually is an area of Laumape's game that the Hurricanes deployed him a fair bit. I remember he kicked a couple of times in the game against the Blues, which seemed to be maybe kind of like, not a trick, but at least when you see Laumape, you don't expect him to be setting up somebody else. But that's what he was doing, little grubber kicks and whatnot. So he averaged 1.3 kicks a game, whereas Goodhue 0.4. So I think that area of his game has improved because he virtually never used to kick. It was just always run. and his passing rate's not terrible. Offload's about 0.8, so almost one time a game. Goodhue's pretty much the same, slightly higher. Turnovers conceded 0.8 times a game. Goodhue's one time a game, so again, much of a muchness. Every now and again they'll cough up the ball, but mostly pretty reliable players. Defensively though, you do see Goodhue makes 8.6 tackles a game, Laumape 6.3, so Goodhue maybe has a better work rate in defense, but again, it's a team game, man. It depends on what your team's doing. If your team's got more possession, you're not going to get as many tackles. It's just a thing. But actually, if you look at the percentages, Laumape was tackling at 90%, Goodhue at 81%. So Laumape may have not made as many tackles, but his tackle overall success rate was higher. So, yeah. Based on those numbers, man, 63 run meters a game, 4.5 defenders beaten. Happy days for us to see that man. Hopefully back in the black jersey. You saw in one of the post-match interviews earlier this year that he seemed, I don't want to say bitter, but he was at least a bit like angry at some of the portrayals of him in the media. And I think he's done a pretty good job at answering his critics and deserves his call-up 100%. So let's hope he is fit. I would imagine as I said, I don't think they'll play him for the first couple of games because if he is injured or if he's just recovering, he needs a bit of time. But yeah, let's hope for the Rugby Championship we can see him back in action. And yeah, good news story overall. You guys let me know your thoughts about that. Congrats to Umaga-Jensen as well. Not sure if he'll get any time, but definitely good to be in that environment. Certainly got heaps of potential. And Laumape, rightly so, in or unlucky, but that's the risk you have. That's why they maybe don't have North-South games every year. Long-term injuries are also a possibility in such an intense game. But anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts. Take care, and I will talk to you again soon. See you later.